Hi, I'm going to go over a student sample with you for the research essay. Um, I had permission from the student to use this as a student sample, so her name is here. So just as a reminder, you need an MLA header, your name, my name. Here, you don't want to put any kind of indication of marriage for academic use because that's just not important. That's more personal information. So here it should just be Susan Austin or Professor Austin or Instructor Austin. Then you'll put the course and section number and the date. In typical MLA, you'll see 6 February and then the year. I'm fine with that order or the order as you see it here. Then don't forget you need your page numbering, your last name, and the page number. Make sure when you're doing this and you're in Microsoft Word that you use the Microsoft Word toolbar at the top to properly format your page numbers. Do not try to manually type that in. It will not format correctly on the page. Next, you need a title, and notice how everything is double spaced. So there should be no extra spaces. Your title should reflect your thesis, and it should show the reader what is to come in the essay, so it should be very specific. So notice how the introduction is brief, concise. You want to start with an attention grabber that is broad, and then you want to narrow down to the thesis. The thesis statement should be the last statement of your introduction. So as you continue to write, upper level classes, sometimes you'll have a background paragraph that's followed by an introduction, and then the thesis would be in the second paragraph. Sometimes the thesis statement is placed higher up in the introduction, but for this class, I want to always see the thesis statement last in your introduction. I think that's a great habit to form, and I think that's the default when you're writing, is to always have the thesis statement last. So notice that the student is writing about music education and how it is a positive influence on students. So she wants to start off with an attention grabber that engages the reader. Music plays a valuable role in the development of children as it is linked to the emotions and behavior of individuals. Very basic, broad-based topic to entice the reader to be interested in the information to come. Then she starts to narrow down the focus so that she can narrow to the thesis statement. I'm not going to read the whole essay to you, but I would encourage you to go back and look at this. But notice how she starts to bring in more individualized, specific information in the transitional sentences in the introduction. So I think she has 2 sentences here that start to narrow the point. And then we get to the thesis, and the thesis is music education should be included in public schools in order to promote positive development and influence among children. So we know that she's going to be proving with research that there is a positive influence of music education on children, and the research will probably focus on elementary children, more than likely. That seems to be what's being promised here, is that we're looking at the younger set of students. Okay. Whatever your thesis statement is, that's what you're promising the reader that will be proven. That is the focus of your essay, and that is what serves as the central controlling idea of your whole entire essay. Once you establish that thesis statement, you should not go outside of those borders of the thesis. So that sets the perimeter for what will go in your essay. The next thing I wanted to point out is each paragraph should start with a topic sentence. This particular student is a really seasoned, good writer. But one thing that she did that I would suggest that you do not do is start with a quote. So she received some point deductions for this because there should be just a clear topic sentence here that tells the reader what is to come in that particular paragraph. Each topic sentence should be an indication of how that section of the essay is going to work to prove the thesis. So here she started off with a quote, and you should not do that. So this was a little bit of a misstep in the organization of the essay. Make sure that every paragraph starts with a topic sentence. That topic sentence should not have a quote in it, and it should really not focus on a specific fact or a piece of data. It should really instead focus on what the main idea of that paragraph is. So here she writes, education is a valuable part of children's development and well-being. Honestly, that should be a period there, and that would be a fine topic sentence. Just stop there. That's your topic sentence. Then she goes on to bring in a quote, and she did a good job because she used signal phrasing and introductory phrasing to get into the quote. So she writes, Edward Droscher elaborates on this more in the journal article, Music Education Benefits. That's a great way to write. I just think that the structure of this should have been a separate sentence. So notice how she does a great job of writing signal phrasing into the point. She's going to start giving some details from the article, and she's going to lead into some quotes, some direct quotes. So here she's sort of setting up how, next will be a quote from the article. So great job here. Then here's some additional signal phrasing according to Droscher, and then here's the direct quote. Okay, so one red flag here for me is I see that she's done the proper signal phrasing into the quote. Remember, a quote can never sit alone in a paragraph. It has to have introductory or signal phrasing with it. But I also need to see those in-text citations. She's tied this properly to the works cited page. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit and show you the works cited page. So when I'm grading, I'm looking for these types of things. So when I go to the bottom and I go to the works cited page, I'm looking for Droscher, and there it is. Okay. I will tell you that this is missing some information. Right off the bat, I do not see a publication that is attached to this, and I don't see any kind of volume, or sometimes you'll have to put page numbers in. It does have the URL, which this is the URL. This is an electronic source, so that was good. But right off the bat, I do see that I don't have a publication for this published article. So that's a little problematic. So let's go back up and let's look at the structure of the essay again. But because she included Droscher's name in the introductory phrasing, she did a great job, and she has tied it to the source so that then I can go look up the source if I have any questions about it. All right, notice how she uses ICE here. She's introducing the point, she's citing it with a direct quote, and then she's going to explain it to tie it into the thesis statement. So after the quotation, she explains how, this sort of is proving the thesis. This shows evidence that music education can influence children and their emotions towards not only school, but in their future. Excellent use of the ICE method to set up, give facts or a direct quote from the source, and to explain it. You'll notice that in this paragraph she does this twice, and I think that's a good formula to follow. You don't have to do 2 direct quotes, but you probably in each body paragraph should give 2 pieces of evidence to prove the point that you're making in that paragraph. If you want to go ahead and do direct quotes, that is perfectly fine. In this case, again, After she's kind of finished that point, she goes on to start transitioning to the next point. She writes, "It is important for children to learn how to become open with their emotions and create a positive outlook on their future," setting up what's to come with the fact from the source. Then she goes in and she writes, "Furthermore, music education can help improve children's academic abilities. According to scientists," now here, if you know who the scientist is, if you have a specific name, a specific study, scientists at Yale University, be more specific. So here, my question as I grade it is, who are these scientists? I see in the in-text citation here, because she did not mention Droscher in like how she did before, she's putting it in text. So that's fine, but I would like to see a little bit more specific with who these scientists are. What part of a study was this attached to, or what are the more specific facts of this? So good job all around, but these are some little things that I made comments about in the paper. So as I grade, I'm trying to show you how to raise the bar, do better, tie it in more efficiently, be more effective with your details. So again, we get down to the next paragraph. Music serves a meaningful role in adolescence, growth, and influence. Perfect topic sentence. So now we know that in this paragraph, we're going to see how adolescents can be influenced by music. So she introduces an article, and then she tells us the author. We see et al. Here, so we know that with Campbell there were multiple authors. That means and more. So I'm not going to read all this to you. This is in the student sample section under resources, so you can go and look at this further. But one thing I'm noticing as I'm grading it is I'm not seeing any page numbers. So that tells me when I go to review the research, I'm going to grab one or two of the sources and see, were there page numbers available, because I'm not seeing any yet. The student did an excellent job. This is very polished, but I'm just sort of putting some ideas out there to show you things that I look for in addition to the great things I'm seeing in this paper. Notice here that whenever you have an abbreviation of any kind, you have to spell it out first, and then you have to put the abbreviation in parentheses. So here, Medlin Music School Network Program. So this looks like this is maybe what it's called. I'm not really understanding that. Usually whatever's in parentheses would be sort of the abbreviation like MMSNP or something like that. So I'm not sure why they're calling it REMM, but this being in parentheses indicates that that is a shortened version of this title. So I'm not sure why that's there, but that would be, like a comment I would probably make back to the student. But it is what this program is called within the school. Never give an abbreviation without spelling it out first or indicating what the full title is. All right, so we come down to the conclusion. As I've said in class before, whenever you have an introduction, the best way to create your conclusion is to just flip the introduction. Restate your thesis, and then start to restate the transitional sentences, and then end with a restated attention grabber. Music education should be included in public school in order to promote positive development and influence among children. That is basically a restatement of the thesis, and that's perfect. That is well placed. You want to remind the reader in the first sentence of your conclusion what was just proven. Then we're starting to broaden out, and we see some restatements of the transitional sentences from the introduction. Now here, I'm going to kind of ding this paper a little bit. This is a little too casual for a formal paper. You don't want to speak directly to the reader, so you wouldn't write something like, "So let's reevaluate music." You would want to make that more formal, and you would want to write something like, "It is important that school administrators or the education system reevaluates music education to benefit young children. To start with, the students started the essay and sort of gave a kind of open-ended statement about music education and it being important. And she's also ending just to remind the reader, hey, this is kind of the reason why you should care about this. This is the reason why this information is important. So excellent job here. I just wanted to show you a few things that I probably made comments about so that when you do yours, that you'll do those things too. So I'm going to show you something here. There were no page numbers in the essay. So I'm going to just check the first one and I'm going to go to it. Automatically, I see that there's a full text PDF. Notice that when you're in the databases, a lot of times they give you sort of a clean version, a more readable version of the article, and it's full text. Sometimes like here you can listen to it. They've sort of manipulated the formatting a little bit to make it easier for you to read, but there's a PDF and there are page numbers. So when I pull up the PDF, I see that there were page numbers, so that means that the student should have included those page numbers in the essay. So be careful with that. Always look for the full text PDF. It's fine if you read the article in a more easy way like we saw in the full text here on the databases, but you have to check the PDF to get the page numbers, and those page numbers need to appear in your essay in your in-text citations. So a couple of things to remember when you're writing your essay. Don't use first person. Don't speak directly to the reader. So we saw that in the example that the student had sort of gone on the edge of speaking directly to the reader here at the very end when she addresses the reader, so let's reevaluate. That's a little too casual, so don't do that. Do not use questions. In an academic essay, the instructor is looking for your understanding and your translation of the research, so don't spend time asking the reader questions. I know in high school that is called the hook, and that's the way you're taught to start essays. In college level work, you are not encouraged to start an essay with a question, and you would actually lose points if you did. And don't pepper in questions throughout the essay. If you feel the need to ask a question, turn it into a statement, and that will make it a stronger phrasing. So don't speak directly to the reader. Don't utilize questions. Make sure you spell out all abbreviations with the first usage and put the abbreviation in parentheses. And lastly, if you use a quotation, you are choosing a direct quote from the source. Do not reference it in your essay as in the quote. That would be a phrasing that would not be favorable, because when you start referencing it as in the quote, you're almost saying that it was a quote in something else, and it was not a quote in the original work. You, as the writer, have pulled in a direct quote as a piece of evidence. It was not a quote in the original, so you should not reference it as the quote or a quote. So those are a couple of tips. There are a couple of other student samples in there you should look at. Remember that when I am showing you student samples, these are polished works. They are student works. They are likely to have some errors in them because there's no perfect writing. But these are examples of polished work, and I did the video to kind of explain some things that you might also want to do to improve your writing.